Hi everyone, hopefully you can all hear me okay. Thank you very much for joining us. We started a couple of minutes late just to give everyone a chance to join and get dialed in. I'm Claire from Cult Pens and I'm delighted to welcome you to our first journaling workshop, hosted by none other than famed Journal with Purpose journaler and published author of not one but two books, the brilliant Helen Colebrook. Hi Helen.
Hi there, thank you ever so much for inviting me today. I'm really excited to, invite you into my little journaling spot and do some journaling with you and talk a little bit about some of the supplies we can use and the sorts of things that we can write about and document in our journals.
Great, thank you. Whilst Helen's just doing a little bit of camera setup, I've got a couple of points of housekeeping just to highlight. So we anticipate the session's going to last about 45 minutes to an hour. So I hope you're sitting comfortably already. This session is being recorded and we will make the recording available over the next day or so. So if you do miss something, don't worry and you will have a chance to take another look. We're going to try and get that out tomorrow if we can. All cameras and sound are switched off for the duration of the session, so we can't hear or see any of you and none of that's going into the recording. But if you do have any questions, there is a Q&A bit at the bottom of your screen. So if you pop your question into the Q&A section, and Christine from Cult Pens is on hand to answer your questions and I'll be in there too. And where possible, we'll pass these on to Helen. Oh, sorry, I've just had a message from Vicky. Hopefully some of you can hear me. I think there's a bit of a sound disruption, so hopefully you're getting the gist of it. So yeah, where possible, we will interrupt Helen, but we don't want to interrupt too much. And if we have time, we will stop at the end for a few questions, if we can fit that in. So Helen, if you're ready, and it looks like you are, your camera's set up, then I will hand over to you to get the workshop started.
Excellent. Well, hopefully you can see everything okay. I'm just going to give it a second for the audio to settle down a little bit. So I thought I'd start off by sharing with you some of the journals that I'm using to hopefully give you some ideas for the different types of things that you might want to use your journals for. So this journal here is a standard size traveler's notebook, and in here I make a few notes every evening on the things that I've been up to during the day. And I'll add little bits of decoration on here. So here I've painted and sketched some of my favourite stationery. Other times I might do things like including photos, sticking little bits of, so these were some baking bits I did with my daughter. And I absolutely love having this because it means that I can, look back on this over the years. So that's one of my favourite types of journals to keep. I also just want to check, can you hear me okay? I saw one of the, okay, I can see some bits on there. I'm just going to play with my audio a moment. Oh, okay, brilliant. So that's my daily journal. This is more of my reflections journal. So this is where I want to tackle perhaps something like quite a big topic, something that's on my mind. And I'll do things like lettering and putting all kinds of washi, wax seals, anything like that in. So this is just something, if I've got perhaps a spare hour or two at the weekend and there's something I really want to document and think about, these are the types of pages that I'll create in here. And the final journal that I'm going to share with you is my bullet journal. And I do this inside a Rhodia Gold book. And this really is where I do all of my planning. So everything that I want to accomplish, I do vision boards in here for my dream life. So I'll stick photos, so things that I want to accomplish, my dream living and creating space. And this is where really all of my tasks get planned out. So for March here, I had a calendar, the main things I wanted to get done. And I've got things like gratitude logs and habit trackers. So all sorts of bits here, always followed then by all of my task lists every day of all of the things that I need to get done. So I hope that gives you a sort of a good idea of some of the different options with keeping a journal, depending on your lifestyle, how much you've got going on. It might kind of help you decide which is the best for you. So in the journaling that I'm going to be doing today, I'm using an A5 dotted notebook, and I'm going to combine two different sections from my new book. So one of the things I'm going to start with is looking at looking at gratitude. So that's what I want these pages to be all about. I think especially with how difficult the last year has been, focusing on things we're grateful for has probably never been more important. I find that it really helps me, especially on the tough days, to think, okay, what are the good things that are still going on? And it could be as simple as things like the sun shining, hearing the birds in the garden, getting outside. So the journal pages will be focused on gratitude, but I thought we'd do something a little bit fun with it and try and create together a floral wreath to go around perhaps a quote page. So I'm going to do a quote page on the left-hand side, and then with a floral wreath around it, and then leave some space here to be able to do some writing and perhaps add a line every day of something we're grateful for. So that's what we'll be working on from the book. And this is what we're going to be aiming towards. Sorry, let me just steady the camera. So I did this on a Rhodia dot pad, which I know was included in the bundles that came from Cult Pens. So this is what I'm going to guide you through that we'll be doing on this left-hand page. And the things I will be using will be the Tombow ABT brush pens. So if you're joining in, any colours of those will be absolutely fine. I'm also going to be using a Uni Emot fine liner. And now I'm probably going to be using a water brush with mine, but if you've got a paintbrush and some water, that will be fine. Or you can do it without these, but I thought it'd be fun to show you a few different techniques that you can do with the Tombows, but not essential at all if you don't have any water to hand. I'll probably also be using some washi tape. To do the floral wreath, I will use a compass, but if you want to do it by eye, that's absolutely fine. One of my rules for journaling is that nothing ever needs to be entirely perfect. And you could always decide to just do the top and bottom branches and not take it all the way around, so then you won't need a compass. And if you're going to be using water with your brush pens, something like some form of plastic packaging would be really helpful for this. To say otherwise, just use the Tombows as they are, but perhaps you'll want to try this at a later date, or even a mixing palette would be good if you've got that for mixing some paint. So brush pens are brilliant because you can use them for lettering, but you can also use them for creating a really lovely watercolour effect, which is one of the things that I'll be going through. So I'm going to start off by using my yellow brush pen. And I'm just going to do a normal style lettering rather than joining them up, first of all. And because I know I want the floral wreath to go around the outside, I'm going to try and keep this somewhat in the middle of the page. And if you're using a brush pen for lettering, what you want to make sure you do is press down firmly when you're bringing your pen down. It is going to squeak a little bit. So hopefully you can see that there, and it's yellow, but so that you've got those thick downward strokes, and then it's always thin as it moves up the page. So I'm going to letter out the words the more. So hopefully you can see that okay. Then I'm going to move on to using my green brush pen. And for this one, I'm going to join the letters up and I'm going to letter out the word grateful. So I'm hoping you can see these picking up okay. So I'm just joining each of those letters, but lifting my pen off in between. So I hope that's picking up okay. So there we go, the more grateful. So I'm writing, the more grateful I am, the more beauty I see. If you've tried brush lettering before and you've struggled with it a little bit with some of these thicker pens, then I can definitely recommend trying something like a Tombow Fudenosuke Brush Pen with a firm nib. So again, by Tombow, but it's a much smaller nib, you'll see from the size of this. And that's one of the ones I always recommend when you're starting out with brush lettering, because it can be a lot easier to control than these broader nibs. So if you're trying this and struggling, please don't sort of give up at this stage. Just try perhaps a pen with a slightly firmer nib in the beginning. So I'm now writing the more. Then I'll go back to the green pen for beauty. Again, just keep lifting that pen off in between. So there, the more grateful I am, the more beauty, and we'll just finish that off with the yellow pen to put I see. And one of the things that I really like to do when I'm doing the lettering to make certain things stand out is to add some outlining around some of the letters. And that's what I'm going to use the Uni Emot fine liner for. And I'm going to add a line on the right hand side of each of the thick strokes and also underneath. And that can really help some keywords if you want them to pop out of your page. And I want grateful and beauty to be the first things that you see, because I think it then helps to set the scene for those journal pages. I like when I'm flicking through them to be able to kind of instantly see what my journal pages are all about. And you could do this in absolutely any coloured pen. I often use a grey pen to add shadows, but you could use a black pen if you've got a black pen handy too. And you see already it's really helping to now make those letters stand out a little bit on the page. Another fun thing you can do with lettering is where you've got those beautiful thick downward strokes, you could actually go in and add some extra decoration to those letters if you wanted. So you could do something like adding dots along the inside or stripes, adding flowers on the top, anything you like, just really making that lettering your own. So hopefully you can see that's really helped that grateful there to stand out. And I'm now going to do the same to the beauty down here. I'd love to know whether you've all tried lettering, whether it's something you get on well with or do a lot. I find it's really good in journals because you don't have the pressure for completing a whole piece. It's your journal and any mistakes are fine because you're just using your journal to tell your story and document the important things in life. So I think mistakes are completely allowed. I always get asked how I cope with mistakes in my journals. For the most part, I just leave them. I just think that it was probably a sign, maybe I was a bit distracted at the time, and that tells its own story. So I'm now going to use my compass to really faintly draw a line around the outside for where I want my flowers to go on the wreath. They say if you don't have a compass or a plate or something to draw around, you could just draw a curved line at the top and the bottom in pencil so that you've got somewhere to kind of work on to add your wreath. I quite often just do these by eye as well, and again, that's absolutely fine. You're not looking for anything like perfection here. So now I've got that circle, I'm going to do the watercolour effect with the Tombow ABTs. And this is where I'm going to use the plastic packaging and some water initially to mix some. So if you don't have any water, you can just follow along by using your pens to add some colour. I will warn you at this stage, when I use the Tombows on the plastic, it does have a bit of a squeak. So if you don't like that noise, it might be worth just turning your sound off for a few seconds. So I'm going to just scribble with it on the plastic packaging. Well, that one wasn't too squeaky actually. So you just want to add some nice ink onto here. And I often think if you've got old Tombows, if you've been brush lettering with them or colouring with them for a while, don't throw them out because they're great for things like this. You don't need the nibs to be too perfect. And when I'm doing something like this, I usually just have a paper cloth to hand as well, so that I can change the colours that I'm using and just wipe off the nib. So I've just squeezed a little bit of water out of the brush pen, and I'm going to mix that in with the ink. So it's this that I'm going to be working with to add the flowers. And I'm going to start off with a really simple flower. I'm just going to add 5 rounded petals. And as you can see, this looks pretty much exactly like watercolour would. And I'm just dipping that back into the diluted ink. I'm going to add this on my page, and you can have a lot of fun with these, playing around with different colour combinations and mixing other colours in too if you want to. And I'm going to add a few of these all around this pencil flower. Again, I would never worry too much about things looking precisely the way you want them to do. If the first thing you look at when you see this is flowers, happiness and spring, then you're probably kind of on the right track if that's what those journal pages are about. And I do these kinds...
sorry, Helen, I was just going to say, and I suppose depending on the time of year, you can adapt your artistry accordingly, can't you? Whether it's Christmas or Easter.
Oh, absolutely. So one of the things that I do is I nearly always do some form of cover page on the new month when I go into my journals. And I will always tie that into the season. So it could be that in the autumn, I would do something like this, just mainly with kind of autumnal leaves and lots of berries. I might put a big poinsettia flower or something on it if I was getting closer to Christmas. You could just do some simple sort of green leaves, some ferns. So yeah, definitely you can just play around with the colours. You could probably get away with even doing the exact same kinds of flowers, just in different colours to represent the different times of the year. So there we go, we've got those flowers all around the outside, and if they dry in time, which I'm hoping they will, then I may well come back and add some detailing using that fine liner again over the top. So I just keep dipping straight back into that ink. So that's one of the hopefully really easy flowers. As you'll see, they're not all precise, some are bigger, some are smaller. I think that adds to the quirks, that's always my excuse anyway. And if you've got one of these pens, because this is water-based ink, you can then just quickly clean your brush off. So you could definitely use a watercolor brush, and in fact you could use any kinds of water-based felt tip pens. Again, I'm going to squeak again. I'm using a lighter pink pen.
Just got a question here, Helen. Does this work on Tombow River paper?
Tombow River paper, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I think Tombow River paper is great for watercolor. In fact, so the inserts that I use are mainly Tombow River paper. I was going to see if I could find one. What you'll find is that it wrinkles a lot when you first do it. So that's a Tombow River paper insert, and I've got watercolor dripping all down there. It will add some wrinkles to your pages, but I absolutely love that in a journal. So it's just sort of something to bear in mind, is whether a little bit of wrinkling. In fact, that's all watercolor down the edge of there. So yeah, definitely give it a go on Tombow River paper. It's one of my favorites actually to do some sort of light watercolor on. I think it's a lot of fun, the effects you get on there. Okay, so I'm just going to mix up a bit of this next colour. And I think I might just add, one quite nice thing to do is perhaps add a circle in the middle of paint and then just flick it out lightly with your brush. Again, a really lovely, easy flower to do. Just add lots of little brush strokes coming around the outside. And as Christine said, yeah, you could definitely change the colours for the seasons. I also think these sorts of things are really fun to do, perhaps on envelopes. If there's people you haven't been able to see for a while and want to send them something nice in the post, why not decorate the envelope, add a few little flowers or something to the front of it, send them a letter to say hi. And one thing I notice in the sort of the journaling community online, where people are all sharing their journal pages, they're often very much into sending out letters to people and packages. I think it's one of those things, once you get comfortable with writing and creating, you kind of want to spread a little bit of that joy around with other people. So anything that you sort of pick up and do in your journal, you can probably find a use for elsewhere as well. Okay, I think I'm going to add one more flower, so I'm going to just mix in some yellow this time. Oh, that one didn't squeak too much. And I think these are a really nice alternative to watercolors. Actually, I love watercolor, but it can be quite messy. It's something you sort of have to be, you know, aware of and often get all your kit out. But actually, with something like this, with just using a water brush and some brush pens, absolutely perfect to do. And I know lots of people do this kind of thing at home with their children as well, because you're hopefully not going to make too much mess with something like this. So I'm going to definitely recommend this as an alternative to watercolors if you're wanting to save yourself some mess, but also great actually if you're going on holiday or something and you want to be able to do a little bit of watercolouring in your journal when you're away. Once we're all mobile again, it's much easier just to tuck a few ABT brush pens or something like that in with you and a water brush, and you can take those with you much more easily. Okay, so we're nearly, I'm just going to add my last flower onto here. Leave those a second to dry. And I'm then going to create some leaves using just the green Tombow ABT pen itself. But I was going to show you one of my kind of favourite things to do. If you've got some ink left over on here, I won't do it on this page because it won't dry in time. But I'll just take that off here. If you add some extra water, get all your colours mixed up, a really lovely way to add some colour to a background of one of your journal pages is add lots of water. And if you've done this on packaging, you can just turn it over, make a mess like I have, and just spread it all out. and use your fingers to spread that out. And I think that just adds such a lovely, beautiful splash of colour to the background of your journal pages. It means that you haven't wasted any of your ink at all as well. And I just find any colour on a journal page makes it so much more inviting for me when I come to write on it. I'm not good with blank pages. I like them to have something on them, and then it encourages me to come back and use them on a regular basis. So that's definitely a nice fun thing to try out, and play around with different colour combinations to see how you get on. So whilst the flowers are drying a little bit, I'm going to add some leaves, and I'm going to do this just straight with the Tombow ABT in a green colour. And I'm going to just lightly touch the pen on the paper, then press down, bring it back up again to form a little leaf. And I'm going to do quite a few of these around the outside. And then in between the flowers, to bring the wreath together, I'm going to add wiggly lines. So over both sides of where the pencil is. That's why I'm saying it doesn't matter if your circle wasn't too precise. So you can add some wiggly lines around the outside. And if you wanted, you could add some little branches coming off, and then add some more leaves, perhaps some little rounded leaves. And I think these pens are great for the kind of versatility, the amount of different things you can do with one set of pens. I'm always on the lookout, I think, if I get anything new in my stationery stashes, how many different things can I do with it? Because then it means that you get really good value from it, and you never get bored of doing the same things over and over again. So I'm just going to keep doing this all the way around. So I don't know if there are any questions that have popped up. If there's anything you want to ask whilst I'm doing this, please feel free.
We did have a question, Helen, about what you consider when choosing a journal, and what is your favourite brand of journal? What do you look for in a journal?
So I'm always looking for something that's going to hold up to a wide range of mediums. And the two journals that I showed you at the beginning, my two favourites would be the Rhodia Gold Book, and also anything with Tomoe River paper in, because you can use fountain pens on those. You can use some light watercolour. You can get away with doing some stamping if you want, if you've got any stamps and ink pads you want to do. And for me, that's one of the important parts for me of creative journaling, is being able to use a wide range of mediums. I do have an art journal as well, which I use for like really heavy mediums. So things like acrylic paint, texture paste. But I've got something that's, I think it's called Dilutions, which is thick, almost like card. And I wouldn't use that as an everyday journal at all. So Rhodia paper is amazing. It has a lovely vellum coating on it, which means that all of your pens slide across it beautifully, and you can use lots of different things on it, which I just find so rewarding. And you also don't get the kind of ghosting or bleed through that you do with some of the other notepads. You can find that you can see everything you've done on the next page, and some people don't mind that at all. They quite like it. I like to know that I'm not going to be able to see anything through that paper. So yeah, Tomoe River paper and Rhodia, definitely two of my favourites.
And which water pen do you use, Helen?
So that one there was a Derwent.
Okay.
And they're brilliant. I always have one of those handy, because say it's just saves you having to go and get a bowl, and if you're clumsy like I often am, knocking it over, or most importantly, the thing I do the most is accidentally drink from it. So at least you can't do that with these brushes. So they're absolutely brilliant things to have, and just fill them up with water from the tap and you're good to go. Okay, so I've got the leaves all the way around. And I'm now going to use this same fine liner again to just add some little details into each of the flowers. And on the ends of the ones where I've added a few leaves, I'm probably just going to do some tiny little flowers as well. Again, tying it in, just 5 rounded petals, colouring them in. These Uni-Emot fine liners are lovely. They come in a huge range of colours, And I find they last for ages. I think my set's probably about 2 years, if not 3 years old now. And all of the colours are still going strong. And that's something else I look for in products, is how long they last you. And the ABTs are another one that lasts you a really, really long time. So I'm going to add some details. I'm just going to go around the petals. So I've started off in the centre. Just going to bring those around. And you could just leave the flowers as they were. It's quite nice to add your own little designs and your own style to these kinds of things, I think. And I'll probably just add a couple of little lines on each of the petals coming out. So a few little strokes, particularly if you think you're not creative, I think it's just worth having a bit of a play, because I think you can always find your own thing. And on this one, again, I'm just going to add some little dots in the middle. And on the yellow ones, I might add a few circles. So, and again, I'm just then going to do the same thing all the way around on the flowers until we've got the wreath complete, and then we'll move on to some gratitude journaling on this side.
Got a quick question here, Helen. For someone that's never done journaling before, any tips to keep that momentum going? You know, especially if they do make mistakes at first and they're slightly put off about carrying on. What would your advice be there?
Well, I think one of the things is to decide, what do you want from your journal? And I think quite early on, it's worth deciding you don't want anything like perfection, because that's just going to put you off. And I do find if you look online, like a lot of people do when they first start out, and perhaps look on Pinterest and Instagram, it can feel really unachievable, but your journals don't have to look like that. And even people that are sharing their journal pages, and I'll hold my hands up to being guilty, I don't share all of my journal pages. I have plenty that are absolute shockers, but I never rip them out of my journal, because they will still have documented something that's important. And another tip for me when you're starting off is to think about how much time you want to put into it. How much time do you have? Are you somebody that's happy to spend hours a day doing something, or realistically, is it more like you have perhaps 10 or 15 minutes available to you? And that will help determine setting up something that's going to be achievable. I've seen quite a lot of people who start off kind of really strong, set up loads of elaborate pages because they've perhaps seen somebody else who's done a tracker for something and they think that would be really good. They then can't keep up with it, and it puts them off doing it. So I'd say start slow and steady, just do a little bit at a time, but try and do something consistently rather than trying to do too much. My actual monthly setup in my bullet journal is quite simple, and I know that I have more time at the weekends than I do during the week. So I try and do on a Sunday, set my journals up for the week ahead. So I'll put on perhaps some strips of washi tape on it, add some headings for the dates, and then I just know that they're more inviting to write in. But any of the like lengthier bits, like the decorations, I tend to leave for the weekend, or I might do a little bit at lunchtime or something like that. But so be realistic with yourself, try a few things out, and don't be afraid to completely scrap a certain style of journaling if it's not working for you, because I think everybody's ideal journal will be completely different.
And just a quick one, someone was asking just when we got started about having different journals for different purposes.
Yeah.
I know from our relationship that you have a gratitude journal, and then you have other journals for other purposes.
Yeah.
What about combining with a work-centric journal as well, or do you think the scope for journaling with work, or would you keep that separate?
Yeah, so my bullet journal is a combination of work tasks. So I tend to think of my bullet journal as my planning, and then I would say that I consider my other journals to be kind of more of my reflective journaling, so my thinking about things. So in my bullet journal, if I look at, I put down everything that I want to do. So that's kind of my journal with purpose tasks, things for me around the home, HR work, social media posts. I put everything in here. But also alongside that, I do keep my gratitude log in here every day, because it's really important to me and I want it to be in a place that I look at all the time. And I combine that with things like habit tracking. So I'm looking at what kind of skills do I need to take me forwards? What kind of behaviours do I need to be doing regularly to help me do well at things? And then I track those. So for me, some of these things link in together, and I then have a completely different journal for where I write about how each day went, what's happened, those sorts of things. But some people do everything all in one journal, and some people have tons of different journals for different things. So probably, again, worth trying a few different kind of layouts and seeing what works well for you. Okay, so now we've got the floral wreath done, I'm going to create some space on this side of the page for writing down something that we're grateful for every evening. And again, because I'm not a fan of a blank page, I find them quite intimidating. I always look for easy ways to add colour. So like those splashes we just added using the plastic packaging, but just using something like a brush pen to add some lines across your page can look really nice. And I just think it makes them more inviting to write in, and I'm a big fan of that. Because I see loads of people who kind of freeze at the prospect of a white page, where to start, what to add. But for me, once you've got something like this on your page, which is really quick, you can't help but want to write in it. That's my experience. I don't want to leave that as an empty page. So I'm just going to draw these all the way across. And of course, you could use any colours. You could combine different colours or alternate them, perhaps have green and yellow stripes. Again, definitely tie it in with a colour sort of scheme that represents that month to you. So say nice and quick and easy. I'm trying to keep it between the dots, but again, I'm not terribly worried. I'm going to be writing on every line. And that's another tip, I think, is people often worry that if they decide that they want to share their journal pages online, they almost need to apologise for any wobbles or accidents on their journal pages. And most of the time, other people won't notice. Quite often, I get questions about how do I cope with mistakes on a post where I've shared a journal page that's got tons of them on it, but people just don't notice. So certainly don't ever let anything worry you too much. So there we go. I've got my green lines all the way down. Another one of my absolute favourite products is washi tape. I have tons of it. If you haven't used washi tape before, it's a Japanese paper-based tape. This is MT brand, again, it came in the bundle. And it's brilliant because you can tear it, which I love. So you don't always have to have scissors with you at all. And I'm going to use this to create a border all the way around the outside of this journal page. So I'm going to just take it close to the ends. And certainly if it's a bit too long, you can always snip it off. But nearly all of my journal pages have washi tape on them somewhere. And often it's the very first thing I add because I just know immediately it's got some nice colour down there. And it already feels more inviting. Again, perfect for adding to envelopes. If you're sending something to someone in the post, just using that to seal it down. I use it when I'm wrapping gifts. I use it to decorate tags. So for me, you can never have too much washi tape. So yeah, just adding those strips all the way around the outside to create a border for my page. And then what I'm going to write at the top is I am grateful for. See, to me, that really wants to be written on. So I'm going to use the Tombow Fudenosuke for this. So you can see the difference in size between this brush pen and the larger ABTs. So I'm just going to letter across the top, I'm grateful for. And you use them exactly in the same way, pressing firmly as you're coming down, and then lightly as you go back up. And this is the pen that I probably use the most for my headings, for writing days of the week. They also come in a nice range of colours, so you can use that to tie in with a certain colour that you're going for in your journal pages. So there we go. So we've got the I'm grateful for. And one of the reasons I love these types of pages is that if you have, say, a really hard day, something's getting to you and you're really focused on that, it can be hard to break yourself out of it. So every evening, one of my kind of non-negotiable parts of my journaling routine is to fill in at least a line on my gratitude log. And as soon as you start focusing on things that you're grateful for, it can really change your mood. And that's one of the reasons I also like this quote: the more grateful I am, the more beauty I see, is because you actually start to look out for things during the day, because you want to make sure you've got something to write down in your gratitude log. So if a neighbour stops and has a chat with you, or you see some flowers in the garden that are really beautiful, I think you're much more likely to notice them and perhaps write about them in the evening.
Sorry,
so with
yeah, what that pen was again. Can you just tell us again that you just wrote with the black one? Yeah.
The Tombow Fudenosuke. So it is, it's hard to say. So if you put in Tombow Fude, even I think on the Cult Pen site, that would come up. So Fude, and it's Nosuke. So Tombow Fudenosuke, they come in the firm nib, which this one is, and also a soft nib, which is also a good in-betweener. But so yeah, that's the one I'm using with the blue plastic. I think the soft nib's got a green plastic coating on it.
I'll share a link in the chat. And another quick question, can you write on the washi tape with the Tombow pens?
You can write with them on some pens, so I'm quite happy to. So if we look at, so if I put a bit of this tape down, you may struggle, possibly, it depends probably how wet it is, but we'll have a go, because sometimes if you put it on something with a coating, it can smudge, but I suspect actually you may be all right with this. So if we wanted to say like write Monday, yeah, so it's got a little bit of a coating on top of that washi tape, so it'd be interesting to see how that dries. Let's see if we were to use something waterproof. So let me get, so I've got here a Stadler Pigment liner, another one of my favorite pens. I like having anything waterproof, so if I write with that, yeah, so be interested in, perhaps I'll come back if you remind me, and I'll come back and try and smudge them in a minute, see how they hold out. Just put that up there. So yeah, on the things I'm grateful for, I don't tend to focus massively sort of on too much of the big things. I try and look at the little things. So for today, so I might just start off with a little dot. I'm not worried about full sentences, so it could be something like the birds singing in the garden. I'm really lucky here. We have loads of birds come into the garden, and it's just so nice to be able to sit and listen to that when I'm working at my desk. So birds singing in the garden. Anytime I have a video call with my daughter, that always goes in my gratitude log. Other things that I would document in there would be things, perhaps even something like if there was a TV program that's really made me laugh, or somebody sent me a message at just the right time that's just sort of cheered me up. All of those things I write in there, and I think it's the little things that can so easily kind of be forgotten. So it might be funny TV programs. And another thing that I'm a huge supporter of in bullet journaling is, along with my gratitude log, I do something very similar with my Be Proud pages, and the same, I write down a line every evening. I think if you're the sort of person that tends to give yourself a hard time and think about all the things that didn't go right, that you didn't get done, taking some time along with your gratitude log to write down a line of things that you're proud of yourself for. I'd say if you do nothing else, please do those 2 journal pages, because it's been made such a difference to me. So even if things in there, again, could be really small things like I changed the sheets, I got all the washing done, or I replied to half of my emails that were outstanding, just to make sure that in the evening I break that cycle of worrying and thinking about things that perhaps haven't been done or that I feel bad about in some way. I'll always put that in there alongside with my gratitude log. So those are the 2 I will fill out every day without fail. Just doing 1 line a day. you could get all of that journaling done within just a couple of minutes. And also another good way of journaling, if you don't have loads you want to write about, is considering a 1 line a day. I do this as a summary alongside my daily journal, where I'll just put really simple things perhaps that I've got done, but some things, so I've got a really nice record at the end of the month of the things that I've been sort of doing. So I've got things here like I filmed a mini zine video for YouTube, created a landing page, got food shop done, so things like that. And I'll also put kind of how I was feeling. Was it happy, thoughtful, relaxed, feeling organized, tired? And it's just nice sort of reflection to look back on at the end of the month. So I'd say, if nothing else, do the gratitudes and the I'm proud pages, and just take a couple of minutes for you every evening to think about kind of what kind of things you want to be writing down in your journal. So another thing I'm always going to write that I'm grateful for is lots of lovely stationery supplies, because I always think it's nice if you've got some nice pens to play around with in your journals. So that probably brings us about as far to the end of those. So if there's any other questions, anything you want me to answer, please feel free.
Just see if any questions come in.
No problems. While I'm here, I'll
to the next workshop, Helen, here.
Excellent, that's good. So I thought I'd give a little flick through. So these are my, showing a bit more detail, my journal pages, the different sorts of things. So this again is Tomoe River paper, covered in watercolor paint, adds a little bit of crinkle to it, but only in a beautiful way as far as I'm concerned. And I love just adding simple kind of little illustrations, sometimes just some lettering and lots of writing, stamping, stickers, absolutely anything goes in my journal. So it's a lovely way of sticking your photos in rather than leaving them on your phone, as I think most people do. I still do with lots of them, but just sticking some little photos in your journals and making sure you document all of those good things. And I rip out quotes from magazines. I love that one. I have no talent for subservience, and so I ripped that out and stuck it in. It's somewhere to have fun. Don't put any pressure on yourself. Make sure that you're enjoying it and documenting those good things in life.
I've got a couple of questions come in then, Helen. Do you use acrylic pens at all?
Acrylic pens or paints?
Yeah, acrylic pens.
Acrylic pens.
Pens. Yes, I've got some Poscas and some Pilots, and they're great for using actually even on top of things like this. If you wanted to add some little white dots or something around the leaves, or to add some detailing to the lettering, then yeah, acrylic pens are brilliant for that sort of thing. I also did, I think for Cult pens some while ago, I used some of the acrylic paint pens to decorate a terracotta pot. So yeah, they're great fun.
We've got some questions coming in, so we'll just see how many we get through in the next 5 minutes. Do you have any suggestions for left-handed people and adjustments they might need to make when using Tombow pens?
So I am not a left-handed letterer, so I know people have problems with the smudging of it and also getting the angle right. Because when I'm lettering, that reminds me to do a test on that, I keep my pen kind of to this side. So if I use a different colour, and that can be hard to adjust for. There is somebody on YouTube called Sunshine and Stationery, I think her name is Caitlin, Sunshine and Stationery, and she did a series called Letter Like a Lefty. So I would definitely look that up, because she's left-handed and she's got some brilliant techniques for it, because I know it is more difficult trying to sort of work out how to adjust it if you're following along with the tutorial. So yes, Sunshine and Stationery, Letter Like a Lefty. Just going to do a little smudge test. Oh, that wasn't too bad actually. A little bit of smudging on the Tombow pen, but none on the Stadler. So yeah, you could get away with that, definitely.
I love that. My daughter's left-handed, so it's Claire interjecting again. I think we had a little bit of sound issues with Christine.
Yeah.
We're just trying to sort that out in case anyone else can hear that as well. So we've got a few questions coming in. One of them, and I think it's perhaps one for everybody, but what about journaling on a budget? What's a keen and cost-effective way to get started?
So things I wouldn't want to be without, I would never want to be without something like a waterproof pigment liner and a brush pen. And those are the two things that I would consider really important to me when I'm journaling. So if I had nothing else, those are the things I want. And I think if you're on a budget, I mean, one thing, sounds like I'm plugging cult pens, but I'm not particularly. One thing that's really good is you don't have to buy things in sets a lot of the time. So the ABT brush pens, then rather than risk buying a whole beautiful set, you know, start with one, see if you like it and see how often you're actually going to use it, because I see so many people buy tons of stuff that they don't use. They see it once in somebody's video and think, oh, I've got to have a go at that, and use it once, perhaps don't get on with it. So start off small, perhaps with a nice black pen that you like writing with, perhaps one brush pen in black, and then maybe find some other things you want to try, and just try one, get one washi tape if you like those, or one ABT, and you know, really try them out, because I think we've probably all been guilty of buying things in the past, and you know, even if they're on offer, if you don't use them, they're still not a good deal. And then look for as many different ways to use those things that you have to really get the most out of them.
That's great, Helen. Thank you. Yeah, you know, our Cult Pens Towers is full of single pens for you to have a play with. But as Helen says, that it can be a really cost-effective way to try out 2 or 3 products without making a big investment, particularly if you're just starting out and you're not sure if journaling is going to be for you. It's hopefully a nice and easy way to get going. So a few more questions. How did you develop your lettering skills? And this one I can totally relate to, because your lettering is beautiful. Someone's asked about getting started because they're struggling to find good guidance and just getting going with it.
Okay, so one of the things I would recommend with lettering, and this is what I did, is getting just used to the pressure. Most people I find are quite good, they're quite happy doing the downwards pressure. It's getting used to that upward pressure. I'd always say also try and work on a desk if you can. Keep this part of your arm onto the desk so that you've got a nice steady surface, because if you're doing it just kind of on your lap, it can make it a bit more difficult. And I would say practice lots of drills. It's boring, I completely get that, but just getting used to the down and upward strokes, then sort of practice bringing them together. I've got on my blog, and I'm happy to send it over, a free lettering brush lettering guide, which has got things like the drills in it that you can do. And I would say, a bit like with anything, probably the more time that you can, the more consistently you can do it. I'd say if you did 5 minutes an evening for 2 weeks, you'd be amazed at the difference that you can make. So doing a little bit each evening, so even if it's just doing these sorts of brush strokes up and down, getting used to your pen and how you feel most comfortable holding it, is a really good place to start. And that's all I did, is I used to sit and do the drills in the evening, and just until I got a bit more confident with them. And then adding headings to your page is a really good idea, because it means that you have to use your brush pen every day to even just write in the date, and it means that you're going to continually use that skill. And over time, I do find that it then starts to get a little bit more gets a little bit easier for you. And say, don't necessarily blame yourself in the first instance. I do think it's often easier starting with a smaller brush pen.
Thanks, Helen. So the Fudenosuke, and that is a bit of a mouthful, would be a good starter. Is that right? One to try out at the beginning. Absolutely.
And they'll often be referred to just as a Tombow feud, because I know, understandably, but you know, even if you were just to write out Monday, Tuesday, something like that, probably over a few weeks you'd find that you're getting used to it. There's also somebody on Instagram, Millie, called Blink Lettering, if you're on Instagram, and she does all kinds of little drills and challenges for brush lettering, and I used to join in with a lettering kind of challenge. years ago, where they'd have a phrase or a word for you to write every day, and then everybody shares them, and it's a really good way to sort of see how other people are getting on, and it holds you accountable a little bit if you're doing the challenges. So yeah, Blink lettering's definitely Millie's worth looking out for. She's great.
Fantastic. Thank you. And a couple of questions about how you print your photos and which little photo printer you like or you'd recommend.
So I have a few different printers actually, partly because I'm lucky enough that I've had some sent to me. My absolute favourite one is called a Brother colour label printer. That's what it's advertised as, sometimes the design and craft printer. And so it can print out all your photos in different sizes. You can get different widths of labels as well to put inside the machine. So you could print out nice big photos or smaller photos, depending on what sort of size journal you're working in.
Great, thank you. And we can share some of the details of those. We don't have photo printers on site, but we can certainly share some of the information after the workshop for everyone. And a question about junk journaling. Do you have a junk journal? And if so, what kind of things do you put in there?
I do. If you'll give me 10 seconds, I will fetch my junk journal.
We would love to see it, I think. I hope that everyone's like me, itching to have a look at the junk journal.
Okay, I'm coming back. I haven't run off. So this is my junk journal. I used some scrapbooking paper for the outside and then painted on the front. And inside here is made up from all sorts of old book pages, maps. These are bits from magazines that I've torn out. So that was just a gardening magazine. Postcards and letters I get sent. So bits and bobs of anything. So you could use, say, old book pages, pretty much anything you like to create these, any scrap paper that you have hanging around. So the point of a junk journal usually is that you want it to be, you know, things that you're saving from going in the bin. And then I use this is sort of as and when. Sometimes I do mess around with acrylic paints. These leaves actually stuck in here by accident. I put them inside to keep them flat before the acrylic paint had dried, so they're stuck in there forever. I stick little pockets and tags in here that I write on, so I might decorate some tags, bits if I've taken a class. I sort of took a bit of artwork from that and stuck it in my journal. So any letters that people send me usually get glued up in here. It's just a lovely way. Somebody sent me the most beautiful Christmas card, ended up there. Another, I think they're a brilliant no pressure way. And for my little writing spot, so I might tear out a sheet of notepad paper. If you've got old pads and things, brilliant place to just stick bits and bobs in, write about anything you like, little business cards, thank you cards, just the perfect place for all of that. So yes, love having a junk journal.
That is fantastic and feels a bit less formal to kind of get started with as well as a collection, which is lovely. We did have one of the questions, someone was asking about whether one of the products or something that you were showing was Midori. I'm not quite sure which product that's referring to. Are you using any Midori products at all?
No.
A really good question about what you do with all your old pens when they have finally run dry. Do you recycle them?
Do you know what? I've never had enough pens, so this is probably going to be really naughty, but most of my pens last so long, I can't remember the last time I had to get rid of any. And if I did, it would have been an individual one, and I can't remember if it was recyclable or not. So I'm not going to be much help on that, I'm afraid.
Yeah, this is something we're looking into at Cult Pens actually, and trying to find out what is possible. So there are a couple of schemes, but it's it's proved a bit challenging throughout lockdown to kind of find out the latest on that. So we will keep you posted if we make some progress on that.
Yeah, because they don't seem to say on them whether they are or aren't. I mean, what I do tend to do with perhaps some pens that are going a little bit past their best for what I might want to use them for, but still perfectly usable. What I used to do when we used to be able to visit a bit more was actually take them to things like the schools and things like that for children to be able to use for colouring. But that obviously wasn't when they completely run out. That would just be perhaps when nibs have gone a little bit sort of tattier. So giving them to kind of preschool groups and things like that was always a nice way of them, you know, they were really thankful for those.
Yes, that's a lovely thing to do. And there's a couple more questions. Oh, here we go. Just an update on Midori. So someone was asking about the brown journal with the elastic closure. That makes sense.
Yes.
Thank you for persevering, that person.
Yeah, fine. So yeah, that's a traveller's notebook cover, and I think you're stocking lots of them now, aren't you?
Yeah.
The
yes, we are.
Traveller's Company ones.
Yeah, they are beautiful. Thank you for that question and follow up. And someone else was asking, we're nearly at the end in terms of questions and time, but we'll try and get through everything. But do you use any fountain pens? And if so, which ones?
I do indeed. So my two favourites that I use are this Lamy fountain pen and also the TWSBI. I believe that's the 580AL, and I think that's the Lamy All-Star. And with extra fine nibs, and I always have the converters in mine rather than the cartridges, because I really like being able to swap around my different ink colours. So that one's got a beautiful blue colour in it at the moment, and I like just being able to sort of use those straight from the ink bottles. So yeah, I've got the Lamy there, which is absolutely beautiful. I think that was the first one that I got. And then I went for this TWSBI one, which I absolutely love as well. So that's the TWSBI, I've got that 580AL, I believe.
It's a rather beautiful coloured one. It looks like one of the rose gold.
Yes.
Yeah, it's rather lovely. And a brilliant question that finished with, but we will hang around for a little bit afterwards if there are more questions, so don't worry if you've got something else burning that you want to ask. But the question was about, how has it come about that you're making a living, your income is coming from journaling? Was that by design or a happy accident? I know we covered some of this in the interview that we did, but I think everyone would be keen to understand how this has come about.
Mainly a happy accident. I never went into it with any intention of that happening. I just used to take photos of my journal pages and share them online on Instagram primarily, and also Pinterest, and was absolutely shocked at how many people started following me, and then people asking if I had a YouTube channel, if I had a blog. I didn't have any of those things, but I then set those up. And then over time, I got a really lovely amount of followers. And since then, obviously, I've had the chance to do 2 books. I do lots of online classes and things like that. So, yeah, it's all just a really happy, natural accident, thankfully.
Fantastic. And as we keep talking about different subjects, more questions coming in. What waterproof fountain pen ink do you recommend?
I don't tend to use any, but I know one that gets highly recommended is Noodler's ink. So I can't vouch for it personally, but I understand it's really, really good if you want to use waterproof fountain pen ink.
And we've got lots of thank yous coming in for the session, which is great. A couple of questions. Yes, this is definitely going to be available to watch later. So we'll work out the recording, and we're hoping that we'll be able to share this tomorrow, but we'll share as soon as we possibly can. I'm going to switch back to video now, Helen. If you want to do the same, we can give everybody a wave. And actually,
okay, give me a minute to move then.
Yeah, will do. Christine needs to be at the ready as well. And I'll just check if we've got any other questions that we didn't cover off.
Brilliant.
So I think we're there, with a little bit of roving reporter going on for Helen, which is great. On the move, live action.
Hopefully I'm turning you around. Yeah,
there we go. There we are, marvellous. I do have one other question. So it's specifically about your Lamy. Does it dry out? Do you find your Lamy pen dries out at all?
No, I've not had any problems with that, and it's
No.
probably about 3-4 years old, but no, not had any problems with that.
Yeah, I'm the same actually. I don't have the same model as you, but I don't find that either. It might be the person that asked the question might be the ink that you're using. But if you want to get in touch with our customer services team, I'm sure they'll be able to give you some hints and tips as well if you're stuck for any reason. So thank you, Helen. One of the other questions was asking about you sharing your social details. So do you want to do that? I'm guessing you've got some people that aren't following you already and might want to.
Brilliant. So yeah, on Instagram. So I've gone croaky again. Hopefully that's better again now. So I'm on Instagram as Journal with Purpose, and my blog is journalwithpurpose.co.uk, and I'm on YouTube as Helen Colebrook.
And we're following Helen on our channels as well, so you'll be able to find Helen through us if you're following us and not Helen, and vice versa. Thank you very much. That was amazing. And as ever, I am in awe of your creativity, not least your steady hand and your neatness. My efforts, I was having a little go and they do not look quite like yours, but it's a work in progress. And actually, I'm going to quote you back to you, but one of the things you said was one of my rules for journaling is that nothing ever needs to be perfect, which I think is an amazing statement for journaling and also quite a good mantra for life. So I'm going to take that one with me. That's amazing. And I also love the one line as just as a really simple way to get started for anyone that's feeling a bit daunted and doesn't really know where to begin. There's some really easy kind of ways in to just see how journaling sits with you. So that's fantastic. Yeah, so as we mentioned, we're going to record the session. We'll aim to get that out to you in the next couple of days. We'll just check in on the questions in a minute, check we've answered everything. So if there is anything further, please send through. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed. We're getting lots of lovely thank yous coming through on the chat, so appreciate that. Let us know feedback and we'll send a follow-up to everybody that's joined today. And we will be doing more sessions, so we'll keep you posted on those. And I wish you all a happy Easter. May the Easter Bunny bring you lots of chocolate. And we hope to see you all again soon. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Helen.
Thanks.